as innovation happens, there's always a new technology wave that comes through that says it's going to take everyone or everything else out.
You are not keeping up with the times if you believe that those systems are okay. They might feel okay to you right now. So much has changed, the pace of change, the competitive nature, the time that it takes to do work. Like, you have to automate because you're already behind the 8 ball. Not all the work that we do every day is still necessary. And have we stopped to even think about what is it that I can stop doing?
But it can be so overwhelming.
How do you keep up with the tremendous amount of change? And the change is happening because we can't keep up.
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I have the distinct pleasure today to be with one of our most esteemed and senior faculty members at Talent Magnet Institute, Kristie Dierig. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be here.
So Kristie and I spend so much time thinking about future of work, the ability to influence culture, people, what we know today as human resources. We're always thinking through what's next, what's the next with leaders, and what's the next with organizational change and design and development. That's where we spend a lot of our time, bringing content to you and through mastermind products and client engagements and things of that nature. So you're in for a real treat today if any of those topics resonate with you and you're like, you know what? I want to learn a little bit more about where we're going and what's happening in the world in terms of leadership, culture, OD, OE, etc. So Kristie, it's going to be a great dialogue.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to
See
go.
what we can find.
So one of the things that I find very intriguing about your perspective and your leadership experience and your insights and your personal desire and interest in the future is the content and what you're learning about it, and what you're following and what's influencing where you think the puck is moving to, right? So can you share just a little bit about why are you so intrigued with that? What most interests you in that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So it might make sense to go back just a little bit into my background in terms of how I came to be so interested in this. So I have 10 years experience in IT. So I was the database administrator and the analyst for a global brand. And so I have a technical background and I saw the IT field grow and change in that time. And I was like, but I don't want to be with this long term. And so I had a chance in the corporate job that I was in, another 10 years looking at HR.
Mm.
And for some people, they're like, why IT to HR? Those are two different fields. And I've met others who were like, that was a natural progression for me.
Mm.
And so for me, it was, I saw the IT, the systems, engineering. I studied that in university, how that applies in the world of HR, in how do you design organizational systems? How do you naturally use technology to create an employee experience or to facilitate the performance reviews or whatever it is, right? Like, we're not void of technology in HR. I mean, it's been around for 20 years, SAP to start in the 90s, right? So it's not that it's been void. But I would say the way it's been fully leveraged and as a part of the HR leader's strategy for work, the workplace, the employee experience, has only kind of grown more rapidly and probably become even more relevant and more apparent in how work gets done in HR in the last 5 years. And it's only continuing, I would say, to condense and become more concentrated in that. And so I'm curious about how does HR build the skills to be effective in today's digital age with AI, with organizational transformation, with the geopolitical employee pressures that are happening, and doing it at a pace that's keeping up with the trends that are happening. So I have this kind of purview for the last 25 years of how things have changed in other functions. And I see it happening in HR as well. And so I put myself in that position to lead, to create training experiences, or to just learn, and to understand that a little better to help others who are on that journey. Josh Berson's a leading thought leader in that space. He's been doing it for 30 plus years. Um, there's a guy that I follow, Jason Averbook. He was at LeapGen, and now it's part of Mercer. But he's been doing a community gathering every Friday from 1 to 2 called the Now of Work. He started it during the pandemic because there was a need. But he is bringing to life like the leading companies, thought leaders, examples of what's happening in the world of HR. And, they look at it more like it's the people, process, and technology of work. So that's why they call it the Now of Work. The tagline, future of work, I've also heard out there. But it's paradigm shifting. It's like, think about recruiting today. Like everybody knows you do an interview. Everybody knows you have a resume. He's interviewing companies that are saying those are not really good practices. And so he blows them up and then provides another solution with companies that are doing that. And so it's just fascinating. So, long story short, I have the IT background, so I think I understand it a little bit. I have the experience and the practical application in the HR world. And so I love to be part of those conversations, to learn and to help others along the way.
So one of the most interesting things that I've heard over the years is as innovation happens, there's always a new technology wave that comes through that says it's going to take everyone or everything else out, right? And technology is going to continue to advance, and the new tool is going to replace an industry. And 25 years in the executive search business, you always hear it, right? I also have a father who has been in it for 50 years, and he has always said, you know what the best technology in the executive search industry is? Having phone conversations, right? Because you're networking nationally, globally, you're building relationships, you're building rapport. Nothing can replace the human interaction. So for example, in the executive search industry, that human interaction in executive search, there are technologies and things that can be put in place to make you more efficient, more effective, speed up maybe the first round conversation, the first round interaction. But there's an art and science to the art form of executive search where you're recruiting CEOs, presidents, CFOs, heads of sales, heads of marketing, heads of operations, heads of supply chain. And that human to human interaction can never be replaced. So it's like that is an opinion. Not everyone may agree with that opinion, but that's the opinion that we've kind of it can never be replaced, but there are assistants, there's help by the technology that can make us more effective and leverage data more valuably so that you can be more efficient in the way you deliver the process. With everything you referenced on technology and the future of work, what does that really mean if I'm a manager and leader in an organization that has an org chart, that has tools at my fingertips that maybe I'm not using them as much as I could be, and my organization just put in a brand new HRIS system or implemented something? What do I need to be doing as a manager and as a leader to learn the technology to identify efficiencies and productivity measures that I could use for my team?
Yeah, great question. And I think that the key point is that, yes, just because technology is coming doesn't mean you should adopt all of it and it changes everything. It's as with everything, there's always a choice and there's a strategy behind it. I think there's a two-pronged approach to that, which, for the manager or for any worker in an organization is, number one, you have to adopt the stuff that is being commonly used today.
Okay.
To have anything that's lagging, to say, well, I just don't do Excel, or I just don't log my information in the system because I don't have time to do that. Or even I'm going to say in the HR world to say like, well, I'm just going to keep keying in the information for my benefits administration because we don't have that integration between the two systems yet. I think those are the cases where you can no longer afford to have those be true today. the paper-based time logging or so on. You can't afford to have those to be true today. You are not keeping up with the times if you believe that those systems are okay.
Mm.
They might feel okay to you right now, but so much has changed. The pace of change, the competitive nature, the time that it takes to do work. Like you have to automate and build those skills, use those tools. Um, because you're already behind the 8 ball, like, right? So I would say, like, don't let that belief be a barrier to your ability to, be more effective at your job. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, there's a strategy and a choice for how much you innovate and how far you go in that. I heard once that, Salesforce as a company was looking at their processes and the employee experiences, and it was a balance of which of these things do we automate with a chatbot, with a workflow, et cetera, and which of these are we going to elevate the human touch?
Mm.
And by being able to understand the desired experience, the desired outcome of that business process or, business activity, by fully understanding that, then you can kind of go back into it and to say, so then which of those elements really need a human touch? And which of those can I fully automate because they're just a commodity or a basic element that really doesn't matter? So I think going into, if you're designing work or you're thinking about how to get work done through your team or through others, uh, always having that lens to say, which of these tasks can I automate or, even delegate or even stop? Not all the work that we do every day is still necessary. And have we stopped to even think about what is it that I can stop doing? So having that discernment every day and then designing those moments where, instead of that email or instead of that Slack message or that Teams message, I'm going to pick up the phone and call somebody because it matters, or I'm going to stop by their desk, or I'm going to do a video chat, a video call rather than a quick message on, because if you're working remotely. I would say being able to understand in those day-to-day decisions, which of those human elements are really still important versus the automation. But I would say upskilling regularly and just not assuming that your aversion to technology or whatever is still okay.
Right.
It's really not okay for any worker.
Yeah. When you think through, like just recently, we were having some dialogues around we were whiteboarding. Kristie and I were whiteboarding with a group, and we looked at the whiteboard blocks and said, this is a great example of how to leverage some chatbot technology that's guiding so that customizes a journey, doesn't replace the ultimate human interaction, but does help people see how to go from point A to where they really want to be. And then, oh, thank you so much for putting me in this place. Even leveraging, I use a note taker. I finally figured out how to be in 2 places at once. It's been amazing.
Mhm.
And I use it in a way that helps me, helps our team, and helps our clients because I can stay more focused on the conversation and not have to take the detailed notes. I can go back and reflect on those. And those tools continue to innovate too. I always joke that every platform you use when you signed up for it 18 months ago, I guarantee you the technology platforms you're using have innovated beyond where you
Yeah.
even realize they are. So, but it can be so overwhelming because every technology is innovating themselves. So there's this dynamic of time investment, of training, of like being intellectually curious to say, and there's part of me that goes, but who has time for all of that? So how do I, as a human, make the time when I already have 70 hours of work to put in a 40-hour work week? Um, how have you seen companies and individuals inside those companies leverage the tools, learn the tools, like a workday implementation? I mean, how in the world do people make the time to learn what it is and how to deploy it?
I think that's the human challenge we have right now in the digital age is how do you keep up with the tremendous amount of change? And the change is happening because we can't keep up, right?
Right.
Is this the pace of change is happening so quickly,
So
so technology
rapidly.
is coming in to make it easier for us, and we can keep up with technology in order to make it easier for us. So I think it's an
Exactly. Yeah.
infinite loop. And so therefore, right, in some cases, we could say you got to keep up. You at least have to be in a mindset of constant learning, continuous curiosity, and putting yourself in a position to say, I'll never fully understand all of it.
Right.
So putting yourself in a constant state of curiosity and learning. And I think it's a discernment of how do you fully understand what's available and how do you use it and when do you use it.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk AI, for example, because I think when we were whiteboarding, we were saying, how do we help people if they say the problem, I don't have time to learn, I don't have time to sit down in a class or watch a webinar or be in two places at once, right? Using those kinds of examples. And so that could be true. In some cases, you could say, well, but you still need to learn. So make the time, right? Put in 1 hour per week to read a book or listen to a podcast or so on. And you need to do that. And how do we meet them where they are? And how do we create better bite-sized learning, just-in-time learning, so they can get what they need at that moment? Because we know sometimes learning is not efficient. Right? I'm going to listen to a podcast from the Unconventional Leadership, and you're going to get great nuggets, but were those the nuggets that you needed at that moment for that problem at that time, right? Maybe you had a conversation yesterday and you listen to the podcast today and you're like, gosh, I wish I had that podcast yesterday because I needed it for that conversation.
Right.
So as valuable as it is, it's still not exactly efficient. Extreme, to the micro minutia of relevancy. And so I think AI becomes a bit of that tool that allows you to have the micro learning on the spot just in time when you need it. I have a 23-year-old son and, he's like, why do I need to learn this and that and the other? Growing up in the digital age, he's like, I just ask my phone and my phone gives me the answer. Right. So I get that. Right. And it's like, you don't need to memorize the capitals of the 50 states if you can get it on your phone in a second, like in an instant. So I understand that's kind of the place that we're living. And so I think it's a both and. Like, how do you set up time to learn and grow? Because you never know what you don't know until you set aside time to do that. And how do you equip yourself with the right tools at the right place? And how do we, as learning and development leaders or thought leaders, how do we bring that to life just in time for our learners? So I think, there's this huge change in how companies are thinking about using AI for coaching and guidance or for those tough conversations. And to say like they're finding success in having avatars or digital assistants or coach in your pocket, whatever those are. And I think it's a great use of technology for that. Because sometimes you don't always have a buddy who can sit down and practice a conversation
that's about to happen.
And it's a pretty difficult one, right? And so people learn by doing. And so sometimes you're like, I just need to sit down and go through, 4 different scenarios that could happen in this conversation and be ready for all of them and then go and have the conversation. So the idea of rehearsing, right, before actually doing is great. It's a great human practice. We don't always have the chance to do that work. So having a digital assistant can help you in doing that. And there's some great examples out there and companies that are leading in that. So anyway, so I think it's a mix and blend, but the theme is you have to be in a position of constant learning and curiosity so that you can learn what you need at that moment and give the best option at that moment. And know that you might not always nail it. So you're going to continuous improve too.
Are you looking for a place that you can create the content that helps market your brand? Or are you somebody who just needs a space that they can record a podcast, record talking head social content? You want to create a webinar, a course, or other content like that? Take a look at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. We're a space built just for creators like you. Our studio here in downtown Cincinnati, located right next to all the hot restaurants in OTR, is set and ready for you. We can have up to 4 people in our studio. You can record long form, short form content. It looks awesome. The lights change colors. I mean, even there, hi, in the background. What's up there, guys? We have all the technical amenities to try and help you succeed at creating high quality content. We work on everything from subscriptions to create your own show. We do day rentals so you can create massive volumes of content and we'll just hand you all the footage. And we can even do things like limited time series where you can come in, record a bunch of episodes at one go, and then have that ready for a show to market your brand or your business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand, or an author who's looking to market themselves with high quality video content, check out our website at cincinnatipodcaststudio.com and schedule a tour today.
Yeah, there's some thoughts I have as you were reflecting here. I was thinking how tangibly even I've learned through this process and what people have been guiding me to do. So, for example, you have to get on. The technology is not going to slow down. So you have to start somewhere. There's a high likelihood as you're listening to this that the tools that you're seeing every day, whether it's Teams, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's a tool called Pipedrive that we use, whether it's that those technologies, they are already using AI. So the good news is they're advancing for you. And we just have to open our eyes to go, oh, that's what that means, right? So there's a likelihood that you're using it. There could be, if you're the leader in the space and you're outpacing, you've been using it in all types of ways. If you're like, I don't even know where to start, there's a high likelihood the technology you're already using every day has it. So you're already starting, you just don't know you're on the journey. Now there's the next step of what does that mean? And how do I leverage what Teams is already doing? And how is our company leveraging? What are the policies? How do I leverage that? Even with ChatGPT, that's what I have used. Now, what we've been doing is we're training our own custom GPTs. And we have both pro account, which means that the data you're putting in is not going out to the world. We also have an enterprise account because we at Talent Magnet Institute and Centennial are testing, can we train the model to be so specific where it's starting to feed back our own values and philosophy and things of this nature? You can, by the way, if you're listening to this, next time you're interacting with ChatGPT or any of the tools, but primarily that's the one that as much as I've tried 7 other versions, ChatGPT is the one that that we're training so well so what you can do is say, your prompting can say, I'm getting ready to have this tough conversation with an employee. I want the employee, again, this is the prompt. I'm getting ready to have a tough conversation with the employee about X. I'm concerned that they're going to respond this way. I want them to feel this way. And I'd like for you to give me feedback based on the way Talent Magnet Institute would coach me to respond. Adding that additional layer is going to feed you, no matter where you are in the world, our perspective, right? So you can start leveraging. I do this when I write. Occasionally all right, I'm trying to accomplish this, but it's not as clear as I need it to be. I wonder how Donald Miller would view this. So I'll ask ChatGPT to view this as, or in the areas of fitness and health, I may throw out a couple biohackers that I follow and say, I wonder what Gary Brecka would think about this topic or that topic or this topic. Then all of a sudden you capture their insight. So that's how you leverage the GPT and you leverage the data that's out in the world. You could even say, I have a topic. I'm trying to lead my team well. I want to think unconventionally. I want to show up in a team meeting to take this approach to motivate my team to navigate through this change. I wonder, and then add in there, give me perspective as if I'm listening to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. And how would Talent Magnet Institute and or the Unconventional Leadership Podcast encourage me to respond to this topic? So I've learned this in prompting. I've heard prompting from yourself and Dr. Leisure and others that are on our team, like the prompt training for the prompting. If you start there and just talk to them like, no, I need to get even more specific. And here's what specific is. Then throw, who do you admire? And if you're listening to our episodes and you think, I want to respond to my team like an unconventional leader, then leverage us as the prompt to help develop your response and design and get more customized. So we're working on this as a team. We're trying to bring all of our content to you in a helpful way. And we're doing some other testing too that's pretty genius, which is why we have people far beyond my genius working on this topic, because we want to be helpful in the technology and provide the technology tools to help you be more effective and more efficient today in your leadership, where it's not like I got to go read a book to figure this out. No, if you just are on our platform or leveraging our mindset, we can already help you think without going through 16 weeks of content. However, team development, team facilitation, working as a group is still so powerful. It's where the magic happens. It takes things from here to the next level, right? So in this, other areas where I might be sitting here going, how else do I leverage technology? What's a first step to learn AI and how it shows up to me? Any other key learnings that you've had in personal reflection?
So I think in your example, if I can unpack that a little bit, because I think there were some practical steps that you are taking that I think can apply to the everyday person in the spirit of work, let's say.
Yeah.
So one is to start and play with ChatGPT or Claude. So it's openai.com, right? So you can get it for free. You can start there if you haven't even touched an AI bot. And when you do, by signing up, you can get it for free, not sign in. I encourage you to sign in. You can still do it for free. But by doing that, it gives you, I call it a container, so to speak, of like, it starts to learn about your prompts and a little bit about you, the way you type or the way you write or something. And you can start feeding it, like you said, Mike. So in your free version, you can start, maybe load your Myers-Briggs profile, maybe load some of your DISC profile, like whatever the things that are true to yourself, kind of your own identity. And then maybe you've got some things you've written, an email or an essay or whatever. You can load that. And so you're starting to train your GPT about who you are. You slowly get into a paid version if you are using it too often, right? Or if you really want to go deeper into the web. So there's a paid version. It's $30 a month that gives you more access to the GPT. But by doing that, if you find yourself really using it a lot, it allows you to then say, and what would the unconventional leader say to, so you start to meld your identity or some of your tendencies and preferences and your style with those things that you admire, value, aspire to be. And so I think those are some ways to break down what I heard you say that allows anybody to have a practical, like, how do you start building your own agent or your bot to help you in that space? So I think that's a very good way to start and guide you as a leader to be more effective in those spaces. I think the second, if we think of ourselves as supervisors or leaders of teams or leaders of organizations, many companies are doing this right now, but I would say go and build your AI policy. Have a philosophy or a policy documented, and hint, you can use GPT to build that for you, right? So say, build me the outline of a policy for how to use AI in my company. And so I've done that, right? I offer it as a template. It's a 3-page, 4-page kind of starting point. It covers the gamut of all the areas you should think about, the safety, security, the ethical use of it, and so on. But I would say you and your company, your organization, no matter how big, that's an important place to start because it kind of defines the rules of the road, the guidelines. You want to make sure you're doing it the right way. And then from there I know one company who's just setting up experiments. They're calling them user groups. And so any employee in the company who's doing something, who is curious about something, who wants to learn, join us. They meet once a month or something. And so you can have a grassroots effort to really explore how are we looking at AI and how it's impacting our work and what are some innovative ways that we're using it. The last thing I'll leave is to say you can do grassroots and to make sure it has a strategic impact and it's a bit of a concerted effort. The best thing to do is micro experiments or call them sprints, however you want to describe it. But companies who are looking at, like, I have this use case. And I'm going to create a team of 2 or 3 or 10, and we're going to go apply AI in a regimented way. And we're going to learn about the impact it's going to have. So I have one company that I know, they spend 8 hours a week looking through their email because they're constantly trying to evaluate their new learners coming into their program. We identified $1.8 million worth of savings if they didn't have to go through their email that way, just from their hourly wages, right? The number of people they have and so on. And so,
So what are they doing in their email
They're-
that saves them?
they're getting applicants. They're evaluating candidate schedule availability for interview planning, or the way that they're signing up for the onboarding program, whatever it is that is currently an email, and is just being able to automate and redirect those into a workflow, or to take their evaluations and have maybe some automated responses, maybe some automated, thank you very much, you don't qualify, go ahead and advance to the next level, those kinds of things. So I'm sure every company has paper trails or email, they're like, it's okay, just email me this and I'll take care of it. So there's a huge amount of ways that we can improve the way business gets done today. And so looking at those as opportunities, call them use cases, and saying, okay, got it. So if we have 60 people who are doing this, let's take 5 and figure out, how do we change their work in a 2-week time frame or a 4-week time frame and have it effective. And then document that and capture it, and then say, now we're going to roll it out. And so AI, you want a philosophy and a policy to start, but it doesn't have to be top-down deployment. It can just be surgical applications and wins.
So
and I think that creates
process improvement.
Process improvement. Yeah. I think it definitely applies there. AI, one of the biggest things it can do for you is save time, right? Improve quality. And it can be applied in many, many different areas, but I think that's a little bit of where you can start.
Yeah, that efficiency and process improvement, most businesses are trying to think about process improvement, manual activities that could be automated. We're talking about maybe non-manual technology related activities that can also be automated, along with manual activities that could be automated. Anything that's repetitive. I have a friend of mine who has invested a lot in their business around the topic of anything that's repetitive, we challenge. Anything that's repetitive, we identify, can we somehow take this repetitive thing that 36 or 136 people do on a weekly basis, can it be somehow leveraged with automation? And they went through their entire organization. They're constantly asking this question. I struggle with how much money they invest in it. But their comment is, well, think about the amount of time we now no longer have to invest in that repetitive system that's now automated, which allows us to go upstream and do something else. So there is a initial investment that has to create an ROI to drive future state, but it's maybe more efficient, effective today than ever before, right? Because it's not all coding. It's, it does the coding for you.
Right, exactly. And what I heard in that, Mike, is it's a company value for efficiency and improvement and automation. And that's a choice. Not every company lives those values, but I can hear that if they're constantly looking at that, it's just as
a core belief.
Exactly. And it's equal to great customer service or trust or integrity. I mean, those are all values, but it really matters in how you think about those values and how it supports the business. There's a strong tie in what I hear there.
Yeah. So as we think about future of work, Kristie, one of the things of how we initially met one another is a mutual friend, Bryson, said, you two should know each other because you're talking about some of the same topics out publicly, out with your colleagues around how do we build safe space and next level knowledge gain and partnership and community with heads of HR, right? So we've been working for 2.5 years, working on what does that look like and what does that mean to us and how can we help and support leaders who are the head of HR, whatever their title might be, they're reporting to the president, CEO, or executive director. That's a big part of our work together. So let's dive into that conversation if we can about why it's important, what we have found, what our research has shared, what our design thinking workshops and our think tanks and all these feedbacks that we've gathered from HR leaders. That might be a next helpful part of our dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it all started with a shared interest and desire of helping those leaders who are facing tremendous challenges and opportunities in their places of work, but might feel alone.
Mhm.
I think, you might have heard leaders, it's lonely at the top, whether it's a CEO, CFO, CHRO, or the CPO, the Chief People Officer,
Mhm.
is that, recognizing you're the one, the buck stops with you. So
Yeah.
you're making decisions and you're upholding the responsibilities of that function within your company. So that is true among leaders like that. And I think HR in particular is all this future of work stuff that we just unpacked. Is there's tremendous amount of change, pressure, work, like huge loads of work that is on the shoulders of those leaders. And so where are they learning? Where are they getting fed? How are they evolving their own beliefs and practices in a way that's keeping up with the amount of change that's happening? So I think it was the merger of those two ideas that really brought us together. And we said, so is there something here? So we put together some design thinking workshops and brought in some of the thought leaders here in Cincinnati and good friends and other influencers. And we said, so we think this is something that's happening. What do you think? Do you feel the strong desire to elevate and and accelerate what you're delivering? And if so, where are you getting fed today? And what we found was, you've got great HR centric organizations in the city, in the nation, SHRM and GCATD, which is the Greater Cincinnati Association for Talent Development, and the chambers of commerce, here in Cincinnati or so on. And there's some great work. The communities come together a lot. They're hitting on the most important topics that are relevant today. If it wasn't COVID in 2020, it was quiet quitting in 2021, and all the things. And now it's DEI or not DEI. It keeps changing. It's always
Mhm.
something. And so how do you keep up as professionals in the workplace when you've got all these challenges and shifting dynamics and paradigms and things? What we found was some of those activities don't necessarily cater to the executive level conversations. They're not always business centric kinds of conversations. Maybe they're a little more like, so HR, how are you developing talent today?
Mhm.
And not always with the ROI angle to it. And then what was, with the third one, they were doing webinars or they had their own network. Well, they were doing no webinars or conferences, but maybe not always getting exactly what they needed at that moment.
Mhm.
So that relevancy and the ease of immediate application,
Yeah.
I think was a little bit of that. And then the whole, like, do you have a network or not? About half of the members of our mastermind haven't built a network at all. And they're saying, whether I just moved to a new city or I've just been heads down for 20 years, I don't have a good network.
Right.
And so we were able to learn about that and say, okay, so what if you had a mastermind that came together in a physical location? And we asked the question, do you want to do virtually? Do you want to do together? Do you want it to be for 1 hour? Do you want it to be for 4 hours or 5 hours? And so with the insights in the focus group, we came up with a 5-hour, once a month in-person meeting. And we make it a variety of locations across the city, because we not only get a chance to visit new experiences or places that could help us in our own business leadership team offsites, or team building gatherings or whatever, but also we're getting exposed to our fellow businesses. So we've had a chance to go behind the scenes with a handful of different companies, whether it's just an office environment with cubicles or it's an actual manufacturing facility. So we've had a
Mhm.
chance to experience some awesome behind the scenes learnings and lessons from
Yeah.
other companies. So that's been fun. And we're curating the content for those leaders based on what they need. And there's a bit of a leap of faith in that. And from a programming standpoint, we're like, Mike, here's what they want. Can we do that in 2 months? And we're, but it's just been so rich and fulfilling because with that leap of faith, things actually do turn out through the mutual connections of the members of the group or our Talent Magnet Institute and the community partners that we have. We're always able to find somebody who can come in and speak on that topic. And so we let the members vote on those topics and they choose from, they can write them in. So it's like, I'm really struggling with my executive compensation incentives, or we're an ESOP. So what are the things I need to know when it comes to, or we're about to launch into that. So they can go, granular in that way. And we're looking at trends across Mercer, Gartner, ChatGPT. What are the latest trends that you see across the different leading publications and saying, okay, so these are the leading topics. So HR leaders, what do you want?
Yeah.
So anyway, so long journey, right? But in the couple of years we came together, we found a common interest. We did some research. We found people that were interested and we've been able to deliver, what is it? I guess 15, 16 different experiences for now 18 different companies. Heads of HR from those companies, and we're finding some success. We're finding some great joy and satisfaction and coming together in this environment.
Okay, so you may be thinking, how do I do this? How do I lead unconventionally? How do I lead my team in a way that's unconventional? How do I build a strategy that's unconventional to elevate my organization and those around me? I want to encourage you to reach out through the link in the description and post that question. I want to learn how to lead more unconventionally. I want to help my team think unconventionally, and let's start the conversation. So thank you for joining us, and let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I was on a call with one of our members this morning, and that individual was sharing, I asked, how's it going? And he was like, I have to tell you, it's exceeded my expectations. The community, the network, the helpfulness, the approach we're taking of curating based on the group. So we're not bringing, here's our list of topics we're going to cover this year, because it's not really about us. What we want to be about is we create the safe space, and we get to hear those content. We've even had, as a business leader, forget that I happen to be leading the HR function or the people or culture function, but as a business leader, I want to elevate my game. I want to elevate my presence. I want to elevate my knowledge and message. And we don't just want to hear from HR topics. We want to hear about business topics and economic topics and, inspirational topics to get me thinking totally outside my lane that I can bring back into our organization. I love hearing that, the decisions had this level of ROI. We've even had some numerically placed dollar values on it because we want to create a great return on your investment of time and resource and treasure. But it's fascinating to me, in the world of leadership, we all need a community. We need a community. We need to feel connected. We need to feel a space. And one of the things that Kristie and I both feel very personal about is that the CEOs, presidents, and executive directors of an organization and the individual who's in the head of people in leadership are typically the two most isolated roles in the organization. And I hate to say this, you're expected to have all the answers, and no human has all the answers. So we're able to put a group together who are all in that similar, who can say, I have a question. Has anybody dealt with this issue? Or I was asked about this. Has anyone been through this yet? Has your organization experienced this? Have you experienced that? How did your executive team go through this, if you're open to sharing? And it helps me, it helps me as a participant figure out I could go around the loop, or the shortcut is I have 3 other organizations who are in my community who have already done it and can say, hey, instead of turning right and then left and then going east, west, north, south, why don't you just turn southeast and get you there, right? Like, this is the secret to the shortcut. Some would say there are no shortcuts in business, but you can gain on knowledge, right? And you can gain on personal connection. So the other incredible benefit that certainly we knew as a believer in unconventional leadership, that humans need the personal interaction. And that community can give you a lot of energy, a lot of positive energy to go, I'm around people who understand me, who don't judge me, who I can just share perspective. So it's been really encouraging. We have 18 organizations in now. My thought by turn of the next year will be up over 25, 26. We also have been dabbling with the idea of individuals reaching out to us saying, hey, I'm not in Cincinnati. What do I do? So nationally, people calling us, asking us questions. What do you think that'll lean us to in the future? Will we be launching new cities, or will we be providing a virtual option? Like, what if I'm listening and go, yeah, but I'm in Philadelphia, or I'm in Jersey, or I'm in Oklahoma City. And what about me?
Yeah. So I want to add to, we'll answer that question. I just want to add a couple more things that I think people are finding in this mastermind, which can, help us relay what that looks like if we go national on this. But one is just having that peer group to validate what you know to be true, but you're not getting that validation inside your company.
Wow, that's good.
So one person who's like, I know in HR, these are like labor laws or things that have not served other companies that I've been with, but nobody seems to listen or care. And so we've been able to provide that safe space and a bit of a, oh, good. Like, I know I'm not crazy, but I'm not crazy because you all tell me I'm not crazy. So it's a bit of an affirmation, which really builds that confidence back at work. Right. So I think we're providing that as well. And we are giving them a chance to kind of circumvent, right? Don't go northeast, south, go southeast, save yourself some time. And, just because you benchmark doesn't mean it's the right answer for you. So being able to see what other people are doing, but then give you a chance to have that mental space to sit and think or to put a plan together. Some people have said, I don't have time to think any other time of the month. But when I come here, you're exposing me to something. I'm concentrated. I'm focused. It's a topic I want to learn because I voted on it. And now I can sit and write down my plan and go back with more clarity than ever before. So it's all the things you mentioned and a couple that I wanted to add. I mean, there's, 5, 6, 10 different points of value that people are finding and coming into groups like this. And so we're really excited with the momentum and the opportunities we've been able to find and what we've learned from our, cohorts and what we've collectively built together.
Yeah.
So going beyond, Cincinnati, I think for all those reasons we just talked, I think there's a handful that are still relevant, independent of geography or co-location. And I think some of those would be that I'm not crazy, right? So having that affirmation, you can still benchmark or discuss options that could, great places to work on a national level. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there are national organizations, software companies, or so on that apply no matter where you are geographically. So I think being able to have a group of people to kind of counteract or bounce ideas around or test the waters, get some recommendations, I think still applies nationally. I think going nationally also allows you to have more like industries. So this is one thing we heard in the focus groups, Mike, but we haven't been able to really cultivate in what we're designing because Cincinnati's got tremendous amount of industry. And yet you don't want so much industry because you almost like you're competing a little bit, and we're sensitive to that too. But what I mean by that is one person said, I'm in the logistics or trucking industry. And gee, if there's other HR leaders or heads of HR that I can connect with who are also in that industry, I would be able to identify and relate better to those things and maybe more easily apply the solutions that they're finding. So there's pros and cons to that approach, right? But I think those are other things that are available to us. Should we go on a broader scale? Because you'll have more people that are playing in that space.
Yeah. And if you think through, most of our audience are what I would call small to mid-size enterprises. And mid-size could go up to $1 billion in revenue, but they're entrepreneurial spirit and ways are privately held, are family owned, are family office owned. And that's who we attract and have a really great impact level with those individuals. So as you're listening and you're like, I'm one of those, I would like to at least learn more. We're growing and scaling, and our goal is to have these communities and to have these experiences where, it's different when you started with our first Power Five. We thank you for being a part of the Power Five to help us get to where we are now. We thank all of our members for all of the insights, the perspectives, we're very open to being challenged. Like, we need you all to help us solve for this. That's what motivates us to build this community. And they also want more exposure, like the excitement of launching the second cohort, the third cohort, the fourth cohort has, like, everybody's like, yes, let's high five on it, because we're going to be exposed to even more insights and perspectives. The other thing that I hope one day that we have a national conference, that we bring thought leaders from all over the world, that we bring communities, that we've got breakout rooms, and we've got a whole conference center where we've got all these experiences happening, that we have overnight retreats that not everybody has to attend, but if they want to attend, they have the exposure to do those things. The 5-hour break in your day is going to provide ripple effect if you commit to those 5 hours a month. Right? That 5 hours a month of stepping out and going, okay, here are the things. And then we're providing conversations, communications, data collection throughout the month and engagement amongst the group. But that 5 hours of stepping out, knowing you're in a place that's taking care of you, that's taking the benefit is we're taking all of your needs into consideration and curating the experience to help meet you where you are as a group and as an individual. So that's the power of masterminds, right? Like, I'm gaining insights. I can ask questions. I can gain perspective. And again, I can jump ahead of competition because I have this group of thought leaders around me that want me to succeed.
Every level of your organization at your executive leadership should probably be investing in their own development.
Yeah.
And there's multiple ways to do that.
Yeah. And so often, though, what we've heard is I approve, if I'm putting myself in a seat of one of our mastermind members, we've heard more than once that as the head of people, I approve the budget and sign off on the investment of $55,000 to send 3 people to a week-long conference, or to spend $18,000 a year per person to send 3 of our executives. I'm investing $54,000 a year to send 3 executives through an experience. I'm providing this coaching tool, this, but Kristie and Mike, I haven't spent $6,000 on myself in 30 years because it's hard for me as an HR leader to even think about that because I'm providing for everyone else. And again, it's back to, but I'm supposed to have all the answers. Where am I being fed? So often when we have a conversation with a president, a CEO, executive director, they're like, oh my goodness, I would love to have my chief people officer in this. I would love to have my director of HR because maybe that's the most senior HR leader in the organization. My vice president of human resources, we even have a couple people who have the title of HR manager and they report directly to the CEO because the company doesn't, titles is kind of agnostic here. We don't really title up. I wish they were in a group like this. I wish they would ask me. I wish she would have brought this to my attention. I wish, because they want to invest in those who are investing in others. So we're giving the confidence rein to say, you may be listening going, yeah, I haven't done that in a long time. And I don't even know if I can make time for it. We're saying your executive team wants you to make time for it because they want you to be fed like you're feeding everyone else. They want you to be supported like you're supporting everyone else in the org chart. So put your oxygen mask on first. If you're going to run, if you're going to go fast, go alone. If you're going to go far, go together. That's the concepts and theories. We talk a lot about the oxygen mask, and it may be I would say it's not overused, because when we share that with our group and with our community, they're like, that is me. It has been years since I've put my oxygen mask on. It has been years since I've set goals for myself, not just for my organization, because I'm always busy helping everybody else set their goals, right? So that safe community, the place of investing and just trust us, like lean into the conversation. If you're listening to this and you're a president or CEO and you're like, I wonder if my HR leader would be interested in this, there's a chance you're going to bring this to them and they're going to say, oh, I'm aware of it. I don't know how I would ever make time for it. Or I assume we didn't have budget for it. And you're going to go, why didn't you bring it to me? Right. Or you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to invest in myself this year. I'm going to put a call in. I'm going to reach out to Kristie and Mike and see what this is all about.
And if I may kind of maybe put a big, heavy period at the end of this whole conversation behind this invitation, right, to really invest in ourselves. In February 2025, Fortune magazine published an article that talked about the issues of succession planning for HR leaders. And these are some stats that really stood out to me that that's my motivation, right, to build my own skills and to help others in doing so. And the stats are of, 1,000 companies surveyed across the enterprise level, so small, medium, large, they said 10% of companies were backfilling their HR leadership positions, the CHRO, the CPO, with non-HR people, up to 10% as of February 2025. And they then did an evaluation to say, and as people progress in their career, HR professionals are 40% less likely to fulfill a C-suite position than their peers. So the CFO coming from a functional finance function, or the marketing CMO coming from a marketing function, HR is 40% less to succeed the C-suite level than their peers. And so those stats, and I don't know how they compare, how does CFO compare to CMO? I don't know, relatively speaking. But for me, that stood out, is I almost feel like HR, like in this day and age, with all the things that are happening and all the expertise that's needed to run an HR function for a company to do it well, right? And we all know all the things that are needed. There's so much that only maybe HR professionals fully appreciate that's required to deliver the business in the way that we do, right? But in doing so, I'm like, not on my watch. Like, you can't have anybody else jump in, a CFO or CMO, and lead the HR function in that way. I'm like, that's impossible. And yet, the things are changing so rapidly. The way technology is impacting the employee experience, the way that we think about our programs, the way we think about performance management, recruiting, like whatever it is that you're doing, the learning and development. I mean, Josh Bersin is saying 80% of the jobs are going away in the next 5 years because of the way that AIs and technology is impacting the way we deliver learning. A little bit of what we talked earlier, Mike. So that being said, I would challenge us to think about and invite us to really embrace, is HR more like Kodak and Nokia, or is HR more Facebook, Google? And I think that's maybe a paradigm or a perspective that we take today. And I think, if it's not 10%, would it grow if we continue to always do what we've done, like Kodak or Nokia, right? Versus saying, I need to really transform and think differently about the way I deliver HR services and products to my business, the way I think about the ROI of why we do the things we do, so that we can continue to evolve and change in the spirit of what we're facing in today's workplace. So as is a mastermind the right thing for you? Maybe. We hope it would be, right? To give you that practical application, the partnership, the community, the safe space to test these ideas or so on. Like, we hope that would be an option for you, and go out there and start learning, stay up to speed on all the things, embrace the webinars, talk to your peers, go to the conferences, read the books, listen to the podcasts and everything, because it's only getting faster.
Yeah.
And so, but how do you surround yourself with the thought leaders and the opportunities and ideas so that you can keep pace?
Yeah.
So that we don't have more than 10% of companies thinking about different succession plans.
Well, and as you reference that, think about what really runs business.
Yeah.
Humans.
Absolutely.
So think about the possibility if you're the leading innovator and you know more and more about the business and how to drive results and how to inspire people and how to impact organization and how to build enterprise, that is who's going to get promoted into the president CEO position. And that's part of what we're trying to inspire in this. One of the things we heard was we don't really need to hear about all the HR things. I got team for that. We want to think more as business leaders. We want to drive results. We want to also, part and partial to knowing me, we also want to take care of ourselves. And I want to learn how to be the kind of leader that has the promotability if I so desire. What is my next chapter? How do I become CEO if that's what I want to be? And where do I go to have those conversations? You go to the CHRO mastermind that we've built. I can only imagine, Kristie, episode 350, where we'll be then with this topic, right? Where our future is going to go with this, the impact this work is going to have, how transformative this work is going to be on the future of work, on the future of the world. We have organizations who have employees in locations all over the world that we're creating transcendent impact by providing this space. And I'm thankful to be on the journey with you.
Same. It's been amazing. It's been really fulfilling, personally fulfilling and exciting, and just great to be a part of a community of people that are hungry to grow and learn and to do so alongside amazing people who have the same passion for humans and for growth. So it's been an incredible journey.
So as we wrap up, one last question. To you, what does an unconventional leader mean?
To me, an unconventional leader is one who is really pushing the envelope in a good way. Not just sitting back and saying, what's the way I've always led? Or what are people doing around me? And I'll just assimilate. I think it's somebody who has clarity of their own personal values and personal style. They have clarity of what the mission is for the organization. And they're able to lead in the intersection of those things. And do so in ways that might not be what everybody else would do. But it's a true north for you and for the organization, and you're okay stepping out and leading in that way. And knowing you're not always going to get it right, but you are so confident and so connected to your organization that that even a small misstep really still lands well. And you kind of have some good tools and tips and experiences to help you along the way.
Well, thank you so much for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I want to thank Kristie Dierig for being here today. I want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for their genius design, creative execution of this episode to bring to you. I want to encourage all of you to subscribe. One of the ways that you can help us be more effective is subscribing to this conversation. So click the link, whatever platform you're on, join us for a weekly episode that's going to drop. And we look forward to the conversations and feedback that we provide. Have a great week, and we'll see you next.